So a lot of business owners think that once a campaign is live, they are running ads. But when you looked into the account with me, it became clear that there's a huge difference between ads being active and ads being managed. How do you explain the difference?
So you can launch a Google Ads campaign and set it and forget it, and it will continue to spend your money. You don't have to worry about it spending money because it will absolutely do that. And especially if you have any sort of AI or automation like SearchMax AI built in, it will continue to spend your money no matter what. SearchMax AI is something that Google is really pushing, and I think it's because it gives them even more control over your account. It is automated matching for search terms. So you give it a core set of keywords to work with, and then Google takes those and runs and tries to find things that are related. When you don't put guardrails in place with negative keywords, with pausing things that are ineffective, with controlling costs, limiting the budgets, you wind up buying a lot of junk, and you don't know until you go in and see what you're actually paying for.
Welcome to Leaders Unleashed, our podcast all about sharing great information with the industry on how to improve, whether it's their own marketing or the marketing for their clients. Today, we have Danielle joining us. I have had the privilege of talking to her myself on a few other calls, so I'm excited to have you here, Danielle, to give our listeners a little bit of an understanding of you. I put together, I hope, quite an intro that gives a good visibility into who you are and what you do. So before we get too tactical, I want to introduce Danielle in the right way. Danielle is the founder of Pink Paradigm, and she works in one of the most confusing areas of marketing for business owners, which is paid ads. And the reason I wanted to have her on is not just because she knows Google Ads. It's because when I talk to her, I realize she thinks about paid ads in a way that a lot of business owners desperately need. And I've talked to quite a few that are in the situation where they're trying to do it themselves, and it's quite complicated. She's not the person that says, just spend more. She's the person who opens the account and asks, where's the money actually going? Are we buying the right searches? Is Google sending traffic to the wrong ad group? Are we tracking the conversions the right way? Are we trusting the platform too much? And are we paying for clicks that never had a chance to actually become customers in the first place? What stood out to me is how practical she is. She talks about paid ads like someone who has had to clean them up for a long time and when a theory just didn't work. She knows the difference between a campaign that is technically running and a campaign that is being actively managed. She knows how to easily manage, she knows how easily businesses can waste money on settings that they don't understand, keywords that are too broad, bad tracking, poor structure, and recommendations that sound helpful, but mainly benefit the program. So we talk about the recommendations. She has a pretty strong ethical line. She said something in our conversation that stuck with me is, if she does not believe results are possible, or if she does not have the experience to get the results, she does not take the work. Because once you take the money for something you know is unlikely to work, your credibility is gone. This is the kind of person I want teaching this conversation, and I'm grateful you joined the podcast, Danielle. Thanks for being here.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So to start, we want to start with your philosophy. So before we get into tactics, can you tell me a situation where you've worked with a customer and felt like the results weren't really possible, where maybe you actually turned a customer away? When are people possibly trying to run ads that aren't going to work?
Sure. So ads that won't work, usually there's some sort of misalignment between the platform or the goal or the eventual outcome. So for example, if you are trying to market for a divorce attorney on Facebook, it's not going to go that great in terms of paid ads because you're kind of invading someone's time with something that is not the best thing to think about. It's better to focus on search because it's a very action-oriented kind of service that you're looking for. So usually it is platform misalignment. Sometimes a business owner will hear a buzzword in a conference or a meeting or a call with somebody and think, oh, I need that. And there's no thought to, well, are your clients there? Is that where your customers are actually looking, or are they engaging on that platform? So there are so many different platforms that you can market your brand on. And when you find the one that matches your audience, matches your messaging, and allows you the ad formats to really tell your story, that's where you get alignment. And outside of that, it's tough to make, it's like fitting a square peg into a round hole. It's tough to make it work.
Sometimes the customer wants your help and it might not be the right fit. Well, and you're saying that you'd tell them no. Why is that such a big deal to you to turn that customer away?
I will never, for me, the number one priority in my business is integrity and that means to me being honest and always communicating what is true in a situation. And if I don't feel like a website is properly prepared, if I don't feel like a product is all the way thought out, if I don't feel like there's an offer or a real hook, I will tell the client. But that's not necessarily like turn away kind of work. I can still work with the client to build what they need to be successful for marketing. It just, they have to be receptive to it. Sometimes business owners can be a little rigid about what they want, said about their brand. And you have to be flexible because times change, what people are searching for changes. So you have to be flexible. And the clients that are the most flexible, I find usually have the most success because they're willing to pivot. They're willing to listen to other people. They're willing to take risks that, professional is recommending. Flexibility is really important. So if I don't take a job, it's because the contact and I didn't vibe well. I'm really focused on building a positive work environment. And if there's any sort of conflict or we're just butting heads in terms of philosophy or what we believe is right, I won't take that job. And if I just don't think that it's possible to get the ROI, I won't take the job, because if your product isn't placed high enough to support ads for marketing, you wind up with a negative ROI unless you have a very healthy lifetime value of a client. So sometimes ads is just not the good fit.
Understand what you mean by if your product isn't placed high enough. What do you mean
priced high enough? So sometimes, so sometimes the actual cost of goods is not high enough to support ad dollars. So you have to look for other avenues, or you have to find other ways to market that. But lifetime value is always important.
It's a simple math problem that the ad spend won't actually equate to an ROI.
Exactly. If your return on every sale, if you're selling a digital product and every return on sale you get $10, but your clicks are $8, you're not going to get those results. You're going to wind up paying way more for your marketing than what it's bringing in.
Okay. Have you ever seen agencies take money for campaigns that they knew probably wouldn't work?
Yes. I've seen this a lot. I have been subjected to it in my former role where, sometimes things were recommended that were not the best fit. And I've also seen other agencies recommend things that are not the best fit, because if this is what the customer comes to you asking for, it's yes, how can I get that money? And the phrase used is ride it till the wheels fall off. So basically collect the money from the client until they quit. And what's the point in that? There's no point in operating like that. I just don't see the benefit.
This is fun. My next question for you. What does ethical paid ads management look like to you?
Yeah. First, transparency. So I think it's really important for business owners to understand the traffic that they're buying and what that traffic is actually getting them. A lot of times I see agencies will report a very low cost per lead. And when you dig into the search terms, it is somewhere between 40 to 80% of brand terms that are converting. So if you are only paying money to bid on your brand terms, and that's where 40 to 80% of your conversions are coming from, that's not a working ads account. That means that you have a really strong brand, and that, unless you have a competitor that is very aggressive in bidding on your name, all of that should go for organic traffic. And I find that when I make that change, the cost per lead goes down. You get a lot more new traffic to the site instead of just continually spending money on people who already know your brand. And that's one of the biggest, I hesitate to say scams, but it's one of the biggest tactics that agencies use, is over-reporting conversions for brand terms. And that to me is unethical.
So they're reporting on the number of, like you said, the number of leads,
Yes.
I think even there, I thought about the number of clicks, right? They're able to manipulate the data just subtly, and it's not even manipulating it truly. It's just reporting the wrong data to the customer to make it look more successful than it really is.
Yeah.
Because the number of clicks, the number of leads, even leads could be defined as clicks if they're how they want to define it within an agency, right? So they're saying this is how many people clicked on your site. This is great. But if 70% of that was brand traffic, we should understand that now they Google searched your company and there was an ad and there was your organic ranking, and probably an uneducated customer that doesn't realize you pay for it every time they clicked on the ad because it was the easiest thing to find.
Yes. And that could be someone who has worked with you before multiple times. People, once they work with a brand once, it's a low barrier to entry to start it again. So if they come back on your brand term, I don't feel like that's a conversion in Google Ads. I don't feel like that's a fair fit because the client has already paid for that branding budget. So why would they now pay for that brand click? It's not aligned.
I think even if you were a local company and there was someone trying to sell you like a point of sale system and they Google searched your company because they found you there and they clicked on it, you just paid for someone to find you easily.
Yeah.
That wasn't trying to actually buy anything. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then if that point of sale system calls you to try and sell you something, like now that's a lead, and that's not a lead. That's not a real lead, but it's tracked in your Google Ads account as a lead.
That's been done for decades, right? Like paying for your ads on your own brand. There's probably a lot that would disagree with you that say it's the right strategy. What do you think the reasoning is behind that being the right strategy?
So there are cases where it is the right strategy, but I find it's few and far between. So in very large scale businesses where you have a lot of competitors that are bidding on your brand terms, yes, you should have coverage for your brand terms. In the absence of competitors bidding against you for your brand terms, it's not necessary because there's no competition. And Google is smart enough to know that your website and your business profile should rank for your brand terms. But large brands, national brands, yes, sometimes it is the best fit.
I've heard that there's a correlation between the cost of your ad and your organic rankings. Can you help me understand how that might apply to the situation for branded ads?
Absolutely. Your on-site SEO is so critical for ads because Google reads any landing page that you want to send traffic to. Googlebot visits it and reads it and gets an understanding for what you're selling. And it does that from a compliance perspective. And then it also does that for a matching perspective to know what sort of keywords it could match for your ad. So anything that you have on your site, if it's structured for Google, when Googlebot gets there for your ads, it's very easy for it to understand, and it can pull a lot of good information, which helps any sort of automated bidding that you have, any sort of automated matching that you have in your account. So on-site SEO is very, very important for your Google Ads performance. It helps with quality scores, and the higher your quality score, the lower your cost per click. So you get a much better buy by investing in Google in organic optimization.
That's a value of SEO that I don't think very many people truly know about, other than those that are deeply in the industry. That's very fascinating. So the technical standpoint, I have been told by a lot of people on the podcast that if your technical SEO isn't in place, it should be the priority of like pretty much any SEO that you ever spend. That if you have a minimal budget, you should start with technical SEO and just get your foundation right. And you're saying that affects your Google Ads as well in a positive way too.
Absolutely, for sure. It's all Googlebot.
So there's a difference between running ads and managing ads. So I want you to help me understand this. So a lot of business owners think that once a campaign is live, they are running ads. But when you looked into the account with me, it became clear that there's a huge difference between ads being active and ads being managed. How do you explain the difference?
Sure. So you can launch a Google Ads campaign and set it and forget it, and it will continue to spend your money. You don't have to worry about it spending money because it will absolutely do that. And especially if you have any sort of AI or automation like Search Max AI built in, it will continue to spend your money no matter what. And a lot of people say, oh, I'm seeing the Google charges. My ads are running. I don't have to worry about it.
Before you go deeper into this, help me understand what that Search Max AI is actually doing to run your ads and whether or not it's truly managing it.
Sure. So Search Max AI is something that Google is really pushing. And I think it's because it gives them even more control over your account. It is automated matching for search terms. So you give it a core set of keywords to work with, and then Google takes those and runs and tries to find things that are related. And the problem with that is it doesn't have very many guardrails. So it could buy traffic that has nothing to do with your business. And once it makes that connection, that if it finds a connection with a user that is not related and that user just by chance happens to convert, now that's a permanent connection. So Search AI will move towards that, whatever that search term was, even though that was just an accidental, like we happened to find somebody who was interested in the product at that time. And that creates a lot of issues because the AI just keeps building and building on its own knowledge. So when you don't manage it, when you don't put guardrails in place with negative keywords, with pausing things that are ineffective, with controlling costs, limiting the budgets, you wind up buying a lot of junk, and you don't know until you go in and see what you're actually paying for.
So that seems like it could be a great thing if I had a $10 million budget. Is that fair?
Fair, yes, because if you have a $10 million budget, you probably have, I would say, more flexible success metrics than what, a standard small business owner would have. So if you have a $10 million budget, you have a good cushion to spend on marketing. But if you're a local small business owner and your budget is $2,000 and $1,500 of that is being spent on junk terms, that's not a good approach at all.
Yeah. For that big budget, it makes sense to have it capture everything and try to learn from the data. But as a small company, there's just not a lot of data to learn from. So it ends up wandering around and spending your money in places that it really should never have been.
Exactly.
To understand that better, can you share some examples of maybe situations where you've seen it going down paths with the wrong search terms that are just...
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead.
Absolutely.
Jump in here and share something with us.
I audited an account a couple weeks ago for a roofing company, and they paid with SearchMax AI, they paid $107 for a click for a cosmetic dentist. Like, I don't know what would make SearchMax AI match any term in roofing with cosmetic dentistry, but it did. And there is no recourse. So that client paid over $100 just for a click for someone looking for a cosmetic dentist. And they obviously can't help because they're a roofing company.
So that as a one-off, that's like, oh man, that's funny. What a funny thing. And if no one's managing your ads and they're just running, it's now spending $107 per click to try to keep marketing to those until it learns. And who knows how long it takes for it to learn this.
Right.
That it's not the right conversion avenue.
Exactly.
Did it convert?
No, it didn't. And
So
I know the click-through rate was really high because it was one search, one click, but the conversions were not there at all.
What does real ad management look like on a week-to-week basis?
So negative keywords, if you have any sort of AI enabled in your campaign, either with Performance Max or SearchMax AI, negative keywords should be almost a daily task until you have a really strong negative keyword foundation, because AI will continue to try and find new avenues for matching, and your job is to keep it focused and keep it in your lane with negative keywords. So the more negative keywords that you add, the better.
Listening that might not understand, what is a negative keyword?
Sure. So there are keywords that you tell Google that you would really like to show up for. Those are the main keywords in the account. And then we have negative keywords, which are the things that we tell Google we do not want to show ads for. So the more negative keywords you have, the better the AI can be guided.
So dentistry could be viewed as a negative keyword for the roofing industry. You would never want to show up for anything that's related to dentists.
Yes, they have very high click costs, surprisingly.
So when the AI is running the campaign, if AI Max is running the campaign, how does it approach negative keywords? Does it add them at all, or is that where weekly management becomes so important?
Yeah, there is no negative keywords added with any of the AI tools. Google's job is to spend your money. That's any recommendation that's made, any recommendation that you get from a Google Ads rep. The main goal is to spend your money. So if that's your marketing goal, absolutely follow all of that advice, let it ride, and you'll meet your goal. But if your goal is to actually have your ads be profitable, you cannot rely solely on SearchMax AI or even Performance Max to run a campaign unchecked. It needs at least weekly touch points.
Well, my campaign is checked, Danielle, because I have 100% recommendations implemented inside of Google Ads. Am I doing it right?
Somewhat. Every recommendation that you see listed in your recommendations tab is aimed at having you spend more money. And sometimes it will even say that, like, if you raise your budget, you could get 0.05 more conversions per week. And meanwhile, it's $1,000 a week budget raise. It doesn't always make sense what they recommend that you do. So it's very important to adopt recommendations that feel and sound logically right.
So where are Google's recommendations helpful? This might be a tough question because there's so many recommendations, but what recommendations do you think are worth it to listen to when Google's talking to a new ad campaign?
So there are some recommendations that are more, I would call them warnings rather than just tips to achieve. So if you have a negative keyword that is preventing your ads from showing, that will be in your recommendations tab, and that's fantastic to listen to. It will highlight campaigns that have weak assets. So ad copy that needs to be improved, or more images or videos. So those sort of tips that seem straightforward and don't immediately lead to you spending more money, those are the ones that are safe to adopt. Focusing on quality, focusing on building your account's health as opposed to increasing budget and adding broad match keywords.
What would you tell a business owner before they take advice from a Google rep?
Don't.
Never take advice.
Never. It's like the Wild West now. And because I'm a manager in so many ads accounts, I'm being called and emailed by these Google reps every day, and they change out every 30 days. It's always somebody new. They have no idea what's going on in your account, what your goals are, what you're really trying to achieve. They're just looking at numbers on a screen. So it never hurts to take the call and listen to what they have to say, because sometimes you can learn, but always keep in the back of your mind that their metric of success is more spend. So you have to view any recommendation that they make from that lens, that it's only trying to get you to spend more money.
So when we talked, we were balanced. Like there was a point where we had the discussion between the search terms and like keywords for advertising. And I'm talking about like organic search terms versus like ad terms is what I would call it. Is there a word that they use for ad terms versus search terms?
Keywords versus search terms.
Keywords versus search terms. So why is that such an important distinction?
Sure. So when you add a keyword into your account, you're asking Google, I would really like my ads to show up for these keywords. And Google says, okay, great. I'm going to learn your keywords, and then I'm going to try and find more keywords that we can show your ads for. And that happens whether you're on broad, phrase, or exact now, because the match types are all sort of wiggly now that Google has made a bunch of changes to that. So when you program keywords into your account, you can have a very clear picture of what you're bidding on. But if you have broad match enabled, or if there is an unknown connection to another industry that you don't know, like maybe industry share terms that mean different things, you can wind up buying traffic that doesn't serve you. And the only way to see that is by evaluating your search terms. And search terms are what people are actually physically typing into the Google search bar, seeing your ad for, and clicking. And those are very different from keywords. Those are what a real human being has actually typed in to find services. So they're very valuable, both for building out your keyword list and also for building out your negative keyword list.
All right. So we have to know the distinction between buyers and searchers, right?
Yes,
so,
for sure.
Say I'm trying to figure that out. Where can I find that information in an ads campaign?
So you would look under your search terms in Google Ads, under campaigns, inside search terms. That is your search term report. And you always want to look at a minimum of 30 days to evaluate your search terms. I usually sort by cost, so I can optimize my time and figure out of what are the highest spending terms and do they need to be adjusted. And from there, I just audit usually 50 keywords at a time, 50 search terms at a time, and I will either add them or exclude them or leave them be just if there's not enough data. So it's kind of hidden in account settings, and it can be difficult to find.
It's from my experience looking through the search terms report, which is pretty minimal. It seems like it could be a death by 1,000 cuts.
Yes.
Can you help me understand why?
Absolutely. There are so many. So when you exclude a search term, even if you're using phrase or exact, Google will only exclude that phrase or that exact term. But there are lots of other ways to say those things. So if you are a roofer and you want to exclude cosmetic dentistry from your campaign and you only exclude cosmetic dentistry, that doesn't mean that your ads won't show for dentist, for dental cleaning. If it's already made that connection, you have only excluded cosmetic dentistry, but there are a lot of other words that you could potentially be matching for that are just as low quality that it won't exclude.
So if AI Max has made the interpretation that I want to rank for cosmetic dentistry, but I go through and I make a clear correction and say this exact word is not the word I want, and I'm saying this exact phrase, right? Or this exact match, yeah, is not the word I want. Does AI Max learn that I no longer want to be involved in that specific search term category, or does it still try to guide me towards conversion in that industry?
I'm going to say allegedly. So allegedly, Search Max AI is supposed to learn not just based on conversions, but also based on the behavior that the user is taking. So if it's a quick bounce, if you're looking for a cosmetic dentist and you land on a roofer's page, that's a quick bounce. that should tell the AI that that's not a great user and we shouldn't use those keywords again. But it's not learning who not to show ads to. It's just finding as many people as possible to show ads to. So it's not really worried about quality, it's quantity.
Okay. So phrase match, exact match on a negative term could be scary. So we go broad match. Tell me why that's not always the right fit.
Yeah, a broad match negative keyword is risky because we are giving that control back to Google and allowing it to make a decision on whether a search term is positive or negative from a broad match negative keyword. And broad match is open to interpretation. It does not have to have any words in common with what it's being matched to. It doesn't even have to be like logically linked, and broad match could still attract searches based on searcher behavior. So broad match just leaves so much up to interpretation that if you have a close enough term as a negative broad match keyword, you could be blocking good traffic and not even know it because Google is blocking them on your behalf with that broad match negative keyword.
Can you give me some examples of where you feel like the algorithm might have got like overstepped a little bit in a broad match that people might not have made the connection themselves on?
That's tough. So I have seen broad match, even though broad match keywords represent roughly 20% of the keywords in the account, I've seen broad match keywords spend over 80% of the budget, and they will cannibalize other keyword match types. Google just prefers broad because it could match anything it wants to broad, and it doesn't have any sort of obligation to at least include what is in a phrase of your phrase match keyword. So it's largely unchecked, and it could spend wildly. A lot, and then when you combine that with automated bidding or with even Search Max AI, you could wind up paying a lot of money per click for things that just don't make sense.
And you find that out only looking through your search terms and thinking, what the heck was this search term? Why are we ranking for this?
Exactly.
Which is the difference, some people say, between managing your ads campaign and not just running an ads campaign.
Absolutely. It's so important to know what your keywords are attracting in the way of search terms, because you know where your money is going, but also you kind of get a feel for how Google is interpreting your brand. And if there's a large disconnect between your search terms and your keywords, it means something is broken somewhere, either in your funnel or on your website or with your ads. And there's a disconnect that Google can't really fully understand what you're selling or what you're offering.
Something specific when we talked that you pointed out was that keywords were organized more by symptoms than by closely related search phrases, which is kind of a nuance to maybe this specific situation that we evaluated. But why does structure matter so much in ad groups? How does bad ad structure actually increase cost per click?
I always like to say that your ad group, keywords, and ad copy should all be in a straight line, shouldn't deviate. So every keyword that is in your ad group should be very closely related in terms of the actual words that are in those keywords, not just by theme, but by the actual words that you're using. So there's multiple ways to refer to a service. So if you think of roofing, if you have roofing, the actual keyword roofing in one ad group, you don't want roof coatings and roof repair in that same ad group, because you can't then write effective ad copy for all of those key terms in that ad group. So the whole name of the game is getting to a really specific set of keywords in one ad group so that when you write your ad copy, all of those keywords match really well with that ad copy and the landing page that you're sending them to. In absence of that organization, Google will send search terms into any ad group that it can find that will charge you the highest cost per click. And usually that is an ad group that does not have the keyword that they are searching. So it finds a pocket to push that search term into, and you wind up paying more because your quality score is lower. You wind up having a lower cost per click because the keyword that the person searched is not in the ad copy, so it doesn't really resonate with them. And you wind up spending kind of a lot of money on traffic that doesn't really know what you're offering.
Well, I don't really know what I'm doing because I thought my campaigns were all set up correctly, but it gets confusing. Like, I had campaigns set up correctly. I have ad groups set up. I have all these keywords. I don't really understand campaigns, when I need ad groups, when the keywords are going to be very specific. And you're talking about quality score. Help me understand this in a very simple way. How do you explain this structure of ads to someone that's never really experienced it before?
So my favorite way to describe Google Ads and the structure of it is like a filing cabinet. The filing cabinet you can think of as your ads account. And then each drawer in the filing cabinet will be a campaign. And inside that drawer, you have your folders, which house your folders are your ad groups, which house your keywords and your ad copy. And when you think of it from a physical standpoint, it makes a lot of sense that if you're organizing a filing cabinet, it's got to be organized. Like you're doing it either alphabetically or by client, and everything that is for that letter or that client is in the same folder. And that's the same way that it works on Google Ads. Everything should be in its rightful spot because Google is a robot. And the easier and cleaner that you make it to understand your ad structure, the more smooth you're going to have in terms of experience, quality score, and where your keywords get pushed.
So maybe I've watched too much TV, because as you talk about the filing cabinet, I thought about like the kid getting in trouble at school and they go to like his ultimate record, right? Like they pull out his permanent record and they pull it out and it's like for someone else. And I'm like, this isn't what I wanted. Now I'm paying you for I'm going to charge you for my frustration as I grab another one and I try to find which one actually is the right one to write on this kid's permanent record in my situation. But You're essentially saying they're going to charge you more every time someone pulls an ad and it's not what they wanted. There's a term for that. Help me understand what that term is when someone maybe found what they didn't want, or how do you actually determine whether or not you have the right ad and showing up for the right user?
So that, I guess you could describe as quality score. And your quality score is really a rating of how organized your campaign is. And that involves everything from the structure to how many ad groups you have, what is inside those ad groups, how well your ad copy mirrors the keywords in the ad groups, and then how well your landing page copy supports your ad copy and your keywords in your ad group. So everything has to be connected to each other in a logical way. So if you have roofing and you're bidding on roof repair, you're not going to send them to a roof replacement page. It's not what they're looking for. You would send them to a roof repair page. So if you have a roof repair keyword and your ad copy is all about roof repair and the user gets to a roof repair page, you're going to have a really good quality score because that is a straight line. I searched roof repair. I saw a roof repair ad. I'm on a roof repair landing page. It's very clean.
Is there data that Google uses to determine that person really was? Maybe conversions? I was actually curious about like click-through rates and bounce rates and other stuff. Can you help me understand how they're actually gauging that quality score?
Yeah, so they're definitely looking at click-through rate, how many users are seeing this ad, searching this keyword, seeing this ad and clicking through. And then Google also looks at what that user does on the site. So even if they don't convert, it could still be a quality visit, and they may come back later. But really what it's looking for is how many people are clicking on that ad that have searched that keyword, because that shows alignment. If you have a really high click-through rate, your quality score is almost always going to be high because it naturally relates to the audience.
Performance Max. Is it useful or is it dangerous?
I love Performance Max, but it has taken me a solid 2 years of running campaigns on Performance Max to
let me actually pause here. What is Performance Max first? Help me understand what Performance Max is.
Performance Max is a multi-channel campaign. So typically we're used to seeing search ads, display ads. On Performance Max, it is search, display, YouTube, Google Discover, and YouTube. Oh, I think I may have already said YouTube, but it's all of Google's channels and Gmail. Sorry, that's the other one, Gmail. So you have a lot of ways to reach a user, and now it kind of takes multiple touches to get a user to your website. There's so much competition, there's so much noise. So Performance Max is really great at that. You can start the journey on search with a user, and then as they're browsing on YouTube, your ads are on YouTube. As they're checking their mail, your ads are in their Gmail. So it is a very immersive experience for a user who is looking for a product or service. And it helps you reach people on a lot of channels. That encourages click-through rates, keeps your brand top of mind, and helps draw more traffic.
So you said it can work well for local businesses, but only if you really plug the holes. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so Performance Max has a lot of holes, and there's a lot of ways to waste money on Performance Max. It's really important to exclude as much as you possibly can, and I mean that in every sense of the word. So exclude hours that are very low performing for your business. If you're open from 9 to 5 and nobody's answering the phone outside of those hours, don't advertise for those hours. If you only have a specific market, only advertise in that market and exclude everywhere else. If you only have a specific set of keywords, add anything else that you can think of as a negative keyword. The more negativity, I guess, that you give it, the more guardrails that you give Performance Max, the better it performs. It just needs guidance to help drive your campaign in the right place. And it does learn and get better over time.
What's some of the dangerous parts of using it then?
Well, it is very open-ended. You are, instead of using keywords, there are no match types. So instead of keywords in Performance Max, it is a search theme. So you can carry over your full keyword list, but it doesn't behave the same. So you can add negative keywords in the search terms, but not all of your money is going to be spent on search. So there's also display placements. There's also YouTube placements. So without excluding placements, like I always like to exclude app placements on campaigns that support it. And you should go through your actual placements and exclude anything that's low quality. And Performance Max is really good at finding weird things to advertise on. So you just have to be diligent about guiding it. And once you whip it into shape for a few months, it gets better and better over time, and it needs less management as you go forward.
So it seems like it's a lot more complicated than the typical ads campaign in that it does a lot more. What creative assets do you need to run a successful Performance Max campaign? Because maybe I don't have a media team for like tons of great videos and pictures. What do you need?
You do need photos and you do need video, but there are lots of ways around that. It doesn't need to be a professionally produced commercial for a video. It just needs to be a video so that you can have video placement. Google just launched their video creating tool so that you could build videos from photos right in Google Ads. So that's helpful. But there's lots of ways to get video content that is approachable for most people. I mean, even if you hire somebody on Fiverr to produce a few videos, you use those videos for the life of the campaign, and the ROI, eventually works itself out. It doesn't need to be a huge expenditure. Stock photos work, but if you're able to have personalized photos that show your face or show the company or, the trucks, whatever the case may be, that's really helpful too.
So do Performance Max campaigns have a quality score rating similar to like a Google Ads campaign?
They don't. The way that Performance Max functions is it will decide the networks to show your ads on based on your budget and your target CPA. So if you have a $5 to $10 daily budget, you're mostly going to get placement on the display network, Gmail, and YouTube. If you're looking for higher quality placements, you do need to have a higher budget and a higher target CPA. Once you raise that, then you unlock the search inventory, which is a little more direct response than the display network and Gmail. So that's all controlled by your target CPA.
So when I'm creating these photos and these videos, do they need to be driven by specific search terms? By like, how do I make sure that the stuff I'm creating actually matches up to how the ad's going to run?
Sure. So if anything that you add into a Performance Max asset group should be related to your products or services, but Performance Max is more flexible than traditional search because you are creating assets instead of ad copy. So you throw in a bunch of headlines, you throw in a bunch of descriptions, you throw in some photos and some videos, and then Performance Max takes over and blends those assets together to create ad combinations. So Performance Max does do some of the work for you in terms of creating these ads, and it can be helpful for people who have limited technical experience because trying to build a display campaign if you don't have graphic design experience can be complicated. And Performance Max kind of takes that off your plate by building those assets for you. You really just want to focus on things that are simple because most of the time there is going to be text overlay over those images in some capacity. So I find I like to do a mix of branding videos. So introducing the company, talking about that company's unique selling propositions or ways to connect with the consumer, and then add in other variations of the service. So photos of the service happening or photos of the finished product.
Okay, so we've got all these avenues of advertising and we try to funnel them down to our website. You had an interesting, I'd call it almost a hot take in the industry, that sometimes the people that are funneling to landing pages may not be doing it right. And I want to hear a little bit more on why you think landing pages might not be the right way to run an ad.
I've been managing Google Ads since 2011, and I have not yet seen a compelling case study to prove that a standalone landing page outperforms a full website. And I am not a person who believes in standalone landing pages. Now, that's not an absolute. There are cases where it's appropriate. If you're a large brand and you've been running an offer for a long time, when you send a person back to a landing page that is specifically focused on that offer, your brand is already well known, that works because the goal is the offer, not to sell the product. If you are a local business, you almost always should be sending people to a full website to build credibility, to allow that user to explore and find the information that's going to appeal to them. If you serve a user a single page landing page, not only does your quality score suffer because there isn't as much information for Googlebot to pull from it, but you are potentially leaving customers on the table because you're giving them a very controlled experience. And people browse and shop in a lot of different ways, and it's impossible for you to nail every single browser and shopper behavior on one landing page. And even if you're A/B testing, you're still really limiting what you're showing a user when you could be showing a user your full website.
So maybe with enough data, you can say that this landing page is converting better than the website was before, if it's promotional or something like that. But it seems like it'd be like I had an experience recently that kind of confirmed to me just how quick the user experience on the internet is changing, where I clicked into a website to find out how much a certain service was going to cost. And I got sucked down their marketing funnel where I was going page after page of them trying to present information to me the way they wanted to present it. And I was like, this isn't what I want. I left their website and went to my AI tool and just said, how much is this going to cost me? And the AI tool told me, and I found myself thinking, wow, the experience of marketing is really changing, where that funnel is now friction to the information. And so you cannot just do this long drip information to them and feed them right into what you want. It becomes very bottom of the funnel. And you're saying maybe reduce the friction and just let them get to the website and find what they want instead of trying to like force what you think they want right into them.
Exactly. And then even just from a practical standpoint, most business owners that are marketing online today have an average budget of somewhere between $2,000 to $5,000 a month to spend on marketing. Why would you invest money in developing a landing page that only serves paid ads when instead you can take that same money and invest into your website, build your organic presence, and have a landing page on your site that drives organic traffic and helps support your paid ads traffic? From an economic standpoint, it doesn't make sense to focus a lot of energy on landing page development.
How can a full website help close someone who needs more trust, which I think is a huge signal that we use today as far as like modern marketing?
Yeah. So every Google Ads account manager will try to find the most relevant landing page to send traffic for the ad group. And that's almost never your about page, which does have a lot of really great information about your brand. And it should tell your story, who you are, what you believe in, and what makes your company significant or stand out. If you send ad traffic there, you're almost always going to have a bad quality score. So we have to kind of balance quality score with experience. So if you can drop a person to the most relevant page for their term, at least they know, okay, the company does this. So even if it doesn't close them on that page, if they have access to your site, they can go to your about page. They can maybe read your reviews. They can check and see your other social sites and if people are leaving comments or complaining. So there's a lot of ways that users browse and look for services, and everybody has their not everybody, but there are different things that people look for. Some people rely heavily on social networks for that gut check, like, oh, this social profile has 2 followers and no posts. Like, I don't think that this is a real business. Or, there's so many different things that you could look at: your Google reviews, your about page, your maps location. So when you offer that full website, you allow a user to find the information that's going to help them convert.
Okay, we're just about out of time, and I have a big question left for you. So I want to make sure we have a few minutes for the answer here. But knowing that a lot of people that might listen to this podcast are potentially trying to do ads themselves, what should a beginner look for first?
That's a tough question. I think a beginner should look for a really good consultant that they can work with for ads. And I hate to be a jerk about it, but Google Ads is so complicated now, and there are so many settings and there are so many options, and it's only getting more complicated. So you are at kind of risk if you're setting up your own campaign to waste a lot of your money. So I find it to be helpful to work with a consultant for 1 month, 2 months, or however much you can afford to help focus your efforts so that you're starting off on a good foot. Because once you allow your campaign to run and you're targeting the wrong settings, you're targeting the wrong geography, any data that you're building up is worthless. So it's better to start off on the right foot and pay for the data that is actually going to help your campaign improve and help you learn more about your business instead of taking a stab at something and wasting money.
What should they absolutely not touch until they understand it?
Your bidding methods. So there are a lot of bidding methods on Google Ads to choose from. And it's anytime you change your bidding method, you are going to send your algorithm back into learning mode. So you always have to be cautious when you're thinking about a change. Sometimes, and this is actually one of the things that Google's recommendations come up with the most, is either to raise your target CPA or to set your target CPA. And they don't tell you that if you make that change in your campaign, you are resetting learning mode. So anytime you are interfering with your bidding method, you are going to interfere with campaign performance. So it has to be worth it to make that change.
How much time should they expect managing it weekly?
Depending on how much you're spending, I would say anywhere from 10 to 30 minutes a week.
What signs show an account needs an expert cleanup?
No conversions tracking, or very few conversions tracking, or only soft conversions tracking, like page views or button clicks. You always need at least one hard conversion to help build good data. Also, really low click-through rates or really high cost per click. Those are the hallmarks of an unmanaged, poorly structured account.
I know that those are going to depend on, like a lot of those are going to depend on the industry that you're in. Is there an average that the click-through rate should be? Like, is it for local businesses? What do you typically want that to look like?
My go-to is somewhere in the vicinity of 1.5 to 2.5 on search and 0.5 to 1% on display or performance max, because it's varied. So you're using those as general checks. You should at least be getting a 1.5% click-through rate. And if you're not, there's definitely a problem.
Okay. And do you have any final piece of advice for anyone that's trying to run their own campaigns?
I think it's really important to understand what you're trying to accomplish with Google Ads, because that will naturally lead the way for the campaigns that you're going to build. If you don't have a clear picture of what you want people to do on your website, what you are trying to have Google Ads do for your business, it's really impossible for you to even direct an agency to help you build an effective campaign. So as a business owner, it's very important to say, what do I want these ads visitors to do? It's almost always conversions, but you should even think about, do I want them to call? Do I want them to fill out a form? Is there another conversion type that I want that is going to be measurable? And so many business owners don't understand not only what a conversion is, but they don't even understand what they're tracking as conversions. So when they're getting reports talking about a low CPL or a high conversion rate, most people don't know what that means. So it's very important to understand what the actual goals, both your personal goals and the actual tracking goals in the Google Ads account are, so you understand where you're headed.
Yeah, that's so fascinating that always comes down to just like the real structure of the company and the plan, whether you really have a plan in place or if you're just hoping things will work. And it's often not as structured as the marketing agencies would like it to be when they want to help. They don't know where to help. Danielle, we're out of time today, so I want to thank you for joining us for this episode, and we appreciate your time. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.